What's up guys, my name is Amir, welcome back to the channel. And guys, the mid-range smartphone market, I'm talking specifically in the $400 to $500 range, has been on fire lately. Samsung has just come out with their latest Galaxy A56, and in response, Tecno has also launched a seriously impressive phone. This is the Tecno Camon 40 Premier 5G. I already unboxed it here on the channel a few days ago, and it's got a killer spec sheet. On top of that, Tecno has priced it very aggressively. So today we're going to be comparing the Camon 40 Premier with Galaxy A56, the same phone that beat the Oppo Reno 13 in our last comparison video. So which phone is better for you? You're going to find out in today's comparison. As always, we'll go category by category to see which phone is better, and then at the end of the video, we'll pick a final winner, and that is usually the most interesting part, so I'd recommend that you watch this video till the end. Of course, I'll also include some feedback from our community of tech enthusiasts to see which one they prefer, and this might also help you in making up your mind. So let's start with our comparison video today, and the first category, as always, is price. Now here are the prices I've been able to find in different regions for these phones. The Galaxy A56 starts at $499 in the US. This is for the 8GB RAM variant with 256 gigs of storage. For the Tecno Camon 40 Premier, you'll really have to check the price where you live, but in most places, it'll be under $500, closer to about $450. Where I live, it's around $420, and it comes in a single 12GB RAM, 256GB storage configuration. And like I said, Tecno has priced this very aggressively in most markets. So in most cases, I think Tecno Camon 40 Premier will be the lower priced phone. And so I'm going to give this price section to Tecno, but do check prices around your area. And there might be some sort of deals available and stuff like that. So that might change your analysis a little bit. Let's now move on and talk about design and materials. Both these feel premium in the hand, though Samsung definitely has that edge in materials. But let's first look at the Camon 40 Premier. It features Tecno's side axis design inspired by a swan's neck. The back and frame are both plastic, while the front is protected by Gorilla Glass 7i. The back has a matte finish, but still feels plasticky to the touch. Don't think that you're going to get away with buying a plastic phone and then it feels like glass or something. It doesn't. It comes with SGS 5-star drop resistance certification. And in terms of water resistance, you get IP68 and IP69 ratings, which means that this phone can take full submersion in water and even survive high-pressure water jets. On the other hand, the Galaxy A56 uses more premium materials. You get Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on the front and back. This high-gloss finish in the awesome light gray color looks awesome. And then in the middle, we have an aluminum frame. This makes it more durable and adds to the premium feel. In smartphones, you really can't go wrong with glass and metal. Also, the design language here is very similar to Samsung's S25, which I know a lot of you will love. Now, talking about physical dimensions, in terms of thickness, there's not a lot of difference, although Galaxy A56 is a little bit slimmer, coming in at 7.4 millimeters, whereas the Camon 40 Premier is at 7.7 millimeters. I know it's not a huge difference. And even in weight, there's not too much of a difference, maybe a 3 or 4 gram difference here. But in terms of hand feel, I personally prefer the Galaxy A56, again, because of the glass and metal design. I mean, when you're in a cold room and this phone is on a desk somewhere, and when you pick it up, you really feel the cold metal in your hands. I really like that. So yeah, overall, I think thanks to the glass and metal build and a more refined design, I'm going to give this round to the Galaxy A56. But from this point on, keep your eye on the Camon 40 Premier because it's going to start dropping bombs very soon. Starting with the display, even though both these phones have pretty great displays, the Galaxy A56 basically checks all my boxes. Both phones have AMOLED panels, they both support high refresh rates and get pretty bright. The Galaxy A56 has a slightly larger display size than the Camon 40 Premier, but here's the kicker. The Camon 40 Premier comes with an LTPO display, meaning it can adjust its refresh rate variably and dynamically to save battery. You normally find LTPO technology in much more expensive phones, so you'll see it in very expensive premium flagship phones. So I was surprised when I saw it in a phone that costs around $400. And then this display also has a higher refresh rate, 144 Hz versus 120 Hz on the Galaxy A56. Now, this may not matter to the average user, but for gamers, I think it's a pretty big deal. Tecno also has higher resolution here, 1.5K versus 1080p on the A56. And of course, it supports 1 billion colors. Like I told you in my previous videos, I am convinced that 1 billion colors is basically a gimmick right now because most of the content you're going to be consuming is going to be in 8 bits. i.e. 16 million colors, you're really not going to benefit day to day by having 1 billion colors supported on your display. But what's not a gimmick though is the bezel size. Camon 40 Premier has noticeably slimmer bezels, which gives it a more premium look. So while the display on the A56 is perfectly fine in my view, apart from slightly thicker bezels, it's going to deliver a great experience for 90% of the users. Camon 40 Premier, however, offers what I think is the best-in-class display at this price point. And so in the display category, I think it takes the win. Now let's move on to our next category, and that is audio experience. Both these phones offer stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos. Neither phone has a headphone jack because clearly they want to be flagship phones when they grow up. In terms of sound quality, it's a bit subjective, but I found the Galaxy A56 to sound slightly better. It has a bit more bass, and the balance between primary and secondary speaker felt better to my ears. There's no big difference in loudness, but overall tuning, especially the mix between bass and treble, is just better on the Galaxy A56. Listening to music and watching movies felt more enjoyable to me on this phone. The sound on the Tecno isn't bad, it's just that the treble is slightly too prominent and it lacks the richness of the A56. What bothered me more about the Tecno is that when I was listening to music at full blast, I could feel vibrations in the back. It's probably because the back is made out of plastic, but it is a bit of a turn-off nonetheless. I had no such issues with the Galaxy A56, perhaps because it's got a glass back and a metal frame, I'm not sure. But experientially, I think the Galaxy A56 is a better choice. So this round goes to the Galaxy A56, though again, audio is very subjective and you may feel differently. This is just my opinion. Moving on, let's talk about core performance. And this one's always fun and crucial for many users, especially tech enthusiasts and smartphone enthusiasts. Now, these two phones have very different chipsets and the performance gap is noticeable. Camon 40 Premier is powered by MediaTek's Dimensity 8350, a 4nm 5G chip, which is flagship grade, or you could say a sub-flagship processor. You also get 12 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM and 256 gigs of UFS 4 storage. On the other hand, with the Galaxy A56, you get Samsung's in-house Exynos 1580, which is also a 4nm 5G chip, but this is more of a mid-range smartphone chipset. It has 8 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM and 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. Do bear in mind that neither of these phones supports SD card expansion, so you're not going to be able to expand storage. You're pretty much stuck with what you get on day one. Now let's talk about actual performance, and the difference here is very significant. The Dimensity 8350 is much closer to flagship level performance, while Exynos 1580 is solid but mid-tier. Benchmarks show a huge difference. Tecno scored around 1.4 million here on Antutu, while A56 hovers around 900,000. CPU performance is somewhat close, but Tecno completely pulls ahead in GPU, RAM, and ROM performance. It's almost double the score thanks to faster memory and storage. It's also great for gaming and more demanding apps. In fact, Camon 40 Premier is certified for 120 FPS in PUBG, which both casual and semi-serious gamers will enjoy. The Galaxy A56 is also smooth for daily use, and One UI is very well optimized. So for general, everyday sort of usage, you won't really have any issues. But when it comes to high-end gaming or heavy multitasking, you will start to feel its limitations. So when it comes to performance, I think the Tecno Camon 40 Premier is the clear winner. Let's now move on and talk about battery and charging. And here the Camon 40 Premier has a slightly bigger battery with 5100 milliamp hours, while the Galaxy A56 has a standard 5000 milliamp hour battery. So on paper, the Tecno wins this one, though the difference is very small. In real-world use, however, both phones offer very similar screen-on times, about 6 to 7 hours depending on your usage. Galaxy A56 benefits from better software optimizations and a slightly lower 120Hz refresh rate, which helps conserve battery. Tecno's more powerful processor and 144Hz refresh rate will draw more power under full load. So in battery life, I'm going to call this one a draw because both of these phones will have more or less the same performance. Charging, however, is a different story. The Camon 40 Premier supports 70 watts of fast charging to 100% in around 45 minutes. Galaxy A56, on the other hand, supports 45 watts super fast charging, which in Samsung's world is the fastest charging on the planet, but not so much in real-world usage. This one takes a bit over an hour to fully charge the phone. Tecno also has bypass charging built in, which is very handy if you're gaming while plugged in because it helps to protect the battery. So for charging speed, I'm going to give this one to Camon 40 Premier, which takes the win very easily. Let's now talk about interface. And if you've been following this channel for a while, you probably already know which way this round is going. Camon 40 Premier comes with Android 15 and Tecno's iOS 15. Over time, Tecno has really improved this UI. These days, it doesn't really feel like a budget brand interface anymore. It feels more polished and premium. And this time, just like every other phone brand, they've also added some AI features. You can choose between Google Gemini or DeepSeek for AI assistance. There are also AI tools like AI Eraser and Image Extender, AI Portrait, and a standout one, which is the AI Call Assistant. It doesn't just auto-answer calls, it can also translate calls and suppress noise in real time. But a very useful feature of Tecno phones is that these phones come with native automatic call recording. If that's something important to you, this might be a deciding factor because Samsung does not have any sort of native call recording built in. But when it comes to overall software experience, I think Samsung is still one of the best in the Android space. Galaxy A56 runs Android 15 with Samsung's One UI 7 on top, which after stock Android is my personal favorite. It's polished, intuitive, optimized for one-handed usage, and offers a very similar experience to Samsung's flagship phones, even at this lower mid-range price point. Samsung's lower-end phones always benefit directly from the R&D spent to develop their premium flagship phones. Daily use feels more mature and smooth, definitely a plus in this segment. Google Gemini is integrated here too, and you get handy AI features like Circle to Search and Object Eraser. But Samsung absolutely dominates where it comes to long-term software support because with the Galaxy A56, Samsung has announced 6 years of software updates and support, which is really above and beyond what we see normally in the Android space, which is about 2 to 3 years. So in terms of software experience and longevity and software support, I think Galaxy A56 is the winner in this interface category. Let's now talk about one of the most important categories for many of you, which is cameras. Especially in the case of Camon 40 Premier, which literally has cam in its name. The name Camon actually means camera on. But let's first take a look at Samsung. So Galaxy A56 has a triple camera setup on the back with a 50 megapixel main camera that is optically stabilized, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro sensor, most probably because they really wanted that triple camera label. Tecno, on the other hand, has come all guns blazing and offers a more true triple camera system with a 50 megapixel main camera, also optically stabilized, backed up by a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera, which has autofocus, and then a third 50 megapixel periscope telephoto camera for 3x optical zoom. On paper and by features, Tecno is clearly superior here, especially with that periscope zoom. You rarely see that at this price point. Most phones in this price point don't have a telephoto camera, let alone a periscope telephoto. But as always, we're going to look at the photo samples side by side. Let's start with the main camera. I think both phones take good shots. The sensors are nearly identical in size and resolution. Tecno's Sony LYT701 sensor and their PolarAce 2.0 image processor deliver slightly sharper and punchier results. Samsung's images, on the other hand, feel more natural and neutral. Dynamic range and clarity are very close, though I personally like color accuracy and sky tones more. Moving on to the ultra-wide cameras, surprisingly, Samsung's performance here was pretty good too, even with a smaller, lower-res sensor. But Tecno's 50 megapixel PDAF-enabled ultra-wide offers better low-light detail and autofocus. But the third camera is where we see the game shifting. Here's the big difference. Galaxy A56 has a 5 megapixel macro camera, like I said, mostly there for a triple camera label. Tecno, however, has a proper 50 megapixel periscope zoom camera, which is a massive upgrade and makes a huge difference in actual use. I can see myself using a periscope zoom camera a lot more than a 5 megapixel macro camera. I'd pick zoom over macro any day. And then let's talk about video. So both phones support 4K, but Tecno can do 4K at 60 FPS, whereas the A56 maxes out at 4K 30 FPS. Side by side, Camon 40 Premier's video looks much smoother, more natural, and dare I say more cinematic. Samsung's video, on the other hand, feels a little bit over-sharpened. It also feels a little jittery. I don't know why. Side by side, it just doesn't look very good compared to the video from the Camon 40 Premier. Tecno's videos also have better quality zoom thanks to the dedicated telephoto lens and having that 50 megapixel trifecta of lenses to choose from, whereas Samsung has to move from 50 megapixels to a 12 megapixel ultra-wide. Stabilization is good on both phones, but overall, Camon's video performance is just better. So in back cameras, I'm going to choose Tecno Camon 40 Premier as the winner. But where it gets really interesting is when we talk about the selfie cameras. Tecno here has stronger specs on paper at least. with a 50 megapixel selfie camera that supports eye tracking autofocus, while the Galaxy A56 has only a 12 megapixel selfie shooter. But megapixels aren't everything. When I compared selfie samples side by side, Samsung won me over pretty quick. What I normally look for in selfies is clarity and detail, skin tone accuracy, and background HDR. And Galaxy A56 nailed all three. Tecno's selfies were okay, but had less detail, but felt a little bit cartoonish to me because they felt a little bit processed, and the background HDR wasn't as good. You can clearly see the border of where the background HDR is trying to separate the foreground and the background, and it just doesn't feel as natural as it does on the Galaxy A56. Now, talking about videos, Camon 40 Premier can do 4K at 60 FPS, while the Galaxy A56 is again limited to 4K at 30 FPS. But honestly, that doesn't really matter to me much because I shoot all my YouTube videos at 30 FPS. I never really shoot in 60 FPS anyway, so I'm willing to forgive that. But when I look at these video samples side by side, again, Samsung's color accuracy and exposure are just better. You can see the selfie videos in the Camon 40 Premier struggling to maintain exposure. The background looks fairly overexposed here. So in terms of selfie camera, I'm going to pick Samsung Galaxy A56 as the winner. Okay, so if we take a look at our points table now, Tecno Camon 40 Premier is clearly ahead. But before we wrap up, I want you to check out the opinion of our tech community and let's see which of these phones they picked. And here you can see most of our tech enthusiasts have picked out Galaxy A56, which is no surprise because Samsung just has a bigger brand. I think you guys trust Samsung's name more. Despite Galaxy A56 being behind this phone in terms of specs and price in most markets, you guys still have picked the Galaxy A56, which goes to show how you guys view Samsung as a brand. Samsung just has a much bigger brand power than Tecno does. It's also a lot more recognized globally. I think that also plays into it. And when we add these points to our table, it seems that our community of tech enthusiasts has rescued Galaxy A56 because now there's a draw between these two phones. But before the poll, only on specs, Tecno Camon 40 Premier was clearly ahead. Despite its aggressive price, it offers a best-in-class display, a really fast processor, great cameras, and convenient charging features. Its spec sheet clearly beats the Galaxy A56. However, if you're looking for an all-rounder phone, something which is good in many areas, has a premium feel, gives you long-term updates, and has that Samsung brand name attached to it, then Galaxy A56 might be the right pick for you. Which one would you pick? Let me know in the comment section below. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and share it with your friends. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.